At the January 15 Consumer Electronics Show, there were very few items caught my attention, but one thing did, and it's a Wi-Fi coffee machine. I thought this would be a great thing to get in and demonstrate to people, especially as it was due to come out first in the UK. So it was announced back in January 15. I was able to pre-order one in February 15, expecting to get it a few weeks later, but there were quite a few delays and it only ended up turning up in October. During the delay, the design was changed from stainless steel to plastic, but the manufacturers did communicate this to customers, giving them an opportunity to cancel their pre-orders, but I stuck with it because I wasn't really fussed either way. Now for the big question. What does a Wi-Fi coffee machine do that a normal one can't? Well, according to the back of the box, you can press a button on your smart device, your phone or whatever, and get the coffee machine to make a cup of coffee. You can have it do it at a certain time of day on an alarm, or it can brew up when you get home. As soon as you walk through the door, get on the same Wi-Fi network, it'll make a cup of coffee or two. Now the plastic panels on the machine are interchangeable. It comes with black fitted inside the box. I fitted mine with red, and you've got another colour as well, white. They are trickier to take off and put on than you'd expect, although of course you don't tend to do this regularly, perhaps just the once. Now it's your typical grind and brew type machine. Beans go in the top there, grinds them up, and they fall down into the reusable filter inside the machine. Of course, water then passes through that and the coffee falls into the pot at the bottom. Access to the water tank is at the rear of the machine behind this flap here. And this jug that I'm using holds 1 litre, and it will take 2 of those to fill up to the top, and that goes up to the 12 cup mark. Now on the front of the machine we've got a dial which we can adjust the coarseness of the grind, and then that little thing on the right is just for steam to come out of. Now while I pour some beans into the top of this, there's just one thing that's confused me a little bit. I was expecting this to be an airtight container. After all, it does have a rubber seal around the edge. But there's no lid for it inside my box. Now I thought maybe that was a mistake in packing, but I've had a look at some other pictures of this on various websites and things, and nobody seems to have a lid on theirs, which definitely seems a little bit weird. Anyway, let's plug this thing in. Very short power lead on this one. I mean, it's alright if you've got a plug within a couple of feet of it on your worktop, but definitely not if you need to stretch it anywhere. Anyway, we turned it on and look, my coffee machine is loading. That's something I wasn't expecting. Now let's have a look how this operates just normally. We've got these 4 buttons. The top right one adjusts the strength of the coffee. The bottom right one says how many cups of coffee it's going to brew. It goes all the way from 1 up to 12. And then on the left hand side we've got beans, and if we press that button that switches between beans and filter. We could use pre-ground filter coffee in that filter of course, and then start should start it off running. So we'll just press that one now. And it says no carafe. And it says it again, which is weird because that definitely looks like a carafe to me, and it's in place. So let's give it a little bit of a jiggle. Maybe it's not registered or something. Right, try again. No, still no carafe. Right, brilliant. Okay, well I do have a carafe, so I don't know what's going on. Let's have a look inside here. Maybe it's something to do with the door. Let's give it a slam. No, still no carafe. Well, definitely is one there. So what's going on? Well, this is one of those things where you put your carafe underneath, it pushes up. It's supposed to press that little switch there, that little micro switch, when it goes in, but for whatever reason it isn't doing it on mine. I don't know why. Everything's assembled exactly how it should be. I think it's just the lip of this thing is supposed to just touch it when the thing moves up ever so slightly. Of course the carafe goes on there, that bit's spring loaded, but I think that top bit's just supposed to move ever so slightly upwards into the machine and press that switch. It's obviously not happening. Anyway, we'll reassemble it. We'll put the filter back in as well, and just try it once more, see what happens. So pop the carafe back in the bottom there. Oh, now there is a carafe. Okay, well, so what happens there is, of course, usual thing, grinds the beans in the top, fall down inside, and then it starts going into the brew mode, makes lots of sort of burping sounds, and makes you a couple of cups of coffee in this pot. So I've sped it forward, it beeps when it's finished. And there we go. Now there is of course a hot plate on the bottom there which does get very hot, so watch your fingers on that. That's what I brewed there, just 2 cups this time, which fits neatly in this big cup that I tend to use. And of course just tastes like normal filter drip coffee or whatever you want to call it. But we're not here to see a boring old coffee machine, we're here to see a Wi-Fi coffee machine. So I've downloaded the app from the Apple App Store. I've already gone through the setup process in the app, which basically just tells the coffee machine your Wi-Fi password, and then you're off and running. So you can adjust the number of cups of coffee you're making, just like we could on the front of the machine, all the way up to 12 and all the way down to 1. So we'll just leave it on 2 there. Now at the bottom you can see we've got the same things pretty much as we had before. That's the strength, those 3 beans there. A little bit tricky to get the hit point on there. You can see my thumb is not really working, but there are 3 dots, presumably is full strength. That's your filter or grind button, if I could get it to press. The next icon along reports back on the level of water in the machine. It says half, but really it's 3/4. And then the next one along turns on the hot plate at the bottom. But surprisingly enough, when you press it again, it doesn't turn off the hot plate. To turn off the hot plate, you have to go up to the bit in the middle and press the stop button. The next 2 icons are faded out because they're not currently activated, so pressing those here, I'd expect that to get into the alarm, but it doesn't. You have to go up to the top right here, and then you can see the wake up mode and the home mode. So wake up mode, obviously you set an alarm, and it'll brew up at that time, and then home mode, when you come through the door with your smartphone, connect up to the Wi-Fi network, it'll then make you a cup of coffee. We've got a descaling option here, and then notifications, of course, what would show up on your phone. Okay, let's try making a cup of coffee by using the app. But the first thing I've got to mention is, of course, I've just made a cup of coffee and the dregs are still sat there in the machine. This isn't one of those clever machines that dumps those into a bin and cleans itself out. No, that's for you to do. But let's pretend I've done that and we'll just pop that back in the machine for the moment. But in reality, you don't really want to brew a fresh cup of coffee on top of some old dregs. Anyway, press start. As you can see, it is working. Well, it would be working if we had that carafe issue sorted. Alright, give it a good jiggle. See if we can get it working this time. No, we've still got problems with that. In the end, I found the solution was as simple as sticking a piece of duct tape over that switch. Of course, not the ideal solution, because that means it thinks there's a carafe there all the time, and now, even if there isn't one there, I could press start and it would brew up and grind coffee and drop it all over the floor. So not the ideal solution, but anyway, it is working. So as you can see, it's grinded up, it's brewed, and when it's ready, we do get a notification popping up on the phone, which is a nice little feature. Now, by trying to rush in and be an early adopter of this machine, I pretty much made a mistake and bought the wrong type of coffee machine. I'll explain what I mean. If you look at this picture here, what do you see along the bottom? You see some cups. Now, I was thinking when I saw these early pictures that this was a coffee machine that would brew up a cup or a jug, just like the Sensio Sarista machine that I'm currently using. That can grind beans, put them into a cup at the bottom, or if you want, you could get the machine to brew up a big jug of coffee, and then once it's finished, it puts the coffee grinds into a little bin at the side that you can neatly tip away and then brew another cup of coffee without brewing it on top of the previous one. Now, if I look back at the CES publicity shots, I can understand why I thought this was like a single-serve coffee machine. You can see it's got a cup at the bottom on this picture, but it's a complete nonsense. If we zoom in, we can see it's just underneath one of those things that the coffee pot needs to go against for the machine to work. And as we've seen, if the pot isn't in place, the machine won't work at all. Now, by assuming it was a single-serve grind and brew machine, I assumed it would drop the grinds into some sort of bin after it had finished using them. But of course, not in this case. It's just an old grind and brew machine, which means they just sit there in that filter until you clean them out. I've got to assume that the problem that I was experiencing with my machine not registering the carafe being in place is a bit of a one-off. Otherwise, none of these machines would work at all. So I've got to think that maybe I'm just unlucky in that regard. But as far as this lid on the top, I don't know what's going on there. I mean, this thing really does need a lid on it to keep those beans airtight. But every picture I've seen recently doesn't have one on, which seems an odd omission given the fact that you have to fill up water at the back, which most people mean have to go over the top of that part, which would also mean that you'd likely to put water in with your beans unless you got a lid on them. But hold on a minute, if I look back at the old CES pictures, look, there is a lid after all. So where's my lid? And what's going on with this app? Why are those icons so close together and so small? You've got a whole flipping screen you can use. What are you doing shoving everything down at the bottom there? So today's rather expensive lesson learned, and something I should have already known, and that's pretty much everything that you see at CES is just smoke and mirrors and BS. And on this occasion, this is something I really wish I hadn't seen because I was quite excited about it back in January, and now I'm really disappointed in November. Anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.